Alien girl brings human before a radiant heirloom, and the heirloom projects humans past. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to the main character. Jake Thompson woke up, the cold, alien air surrounding him. He felt the weight of the situation on his shoulders as he slowly took in his surroundings. The room he found himself in was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls shimmered with a strange, soft glow, and the scent of unfamiliar flowers filled the air, mixing with the scent of something old, like aged wood and stone. The floor beneath him was smooth and dark, almost like glass, reflecting the distant lights above. He couldn't quite place the feeling. It wasn't fear, nor was it excitement, just an overwhelming sense of being out of place. He stood up, trying to steady himself. His body ached from the unfamiliar gravity of this strange place. The last thing he remembered was being pulled through the portal by the mysterious alien girl, Lyra, who had appeared in front of him moments ago. She was unlike anyone Jake had ever seen before. With her radiant blue skin and eyes that seemed to glow with an inner light, she looked almost otherworldly, as if she was not entirely from this realm. Lyra stood across from him, her gaze focused on something in the distance. In her hand, she held a small, intricate object, an heirloom. It shone brightly, casting soft, golden light around them. "This is the heirloom." Lyra's voice was soft but filled with an undeniable authority, as if she were speaking of something sacred. "It is ancient and holds the memories of my people. But it is also a bridge. A bridge between worlds. And, Jake, it is time you saw your past." She stepped forward, her movements fluid and graceful. Jake could feel the weight of her words as she placed the heirloom before him. The object glowed, and in that moment, Jake's mind was flooded with images, flashes of his past. Memories he had forgotten, hidden away in the deepest corners of his mind. His childhood home, the warm kitchen where his mother used to cook, the laughter of his family echoing in his ears. But then, something changed. The memories shifted, grew darker. He saw moments of loss, of loneliness, of struggles that shaped who he had become. The images were too much to take in at once, but there was something mesmerizing about the way they unfolded. As the heirloom continued to project his past, Jake felt himself drawn into the vortex of memories. His hands trembled, but he could not tear his eyes away. The projections were more than just memories, they were emotions, feelings from long ago, all woven into the tapestry of his life. Lyra watched him quietly, her expression unreadable. For a moment, the air between them seemed to hum with energy, a shared understanding without words. Jake could feel the weight of his past, but he also felt something else, an undeniable connection to Lyra. Was it the heirloom? Or something more? He didn't know, but one thing was certain, he couldn't turn away from what was unfolding before him. The past was alive in a way he had never imagined. And as the memories continued to pour out, he began to realize that the future was not so far away. This alien girl, with her glowing eyes and radiant presence, had brought him to a place where time and space seemed to bend. She had shown him a part of himself he never knew he had lost. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Jake didn't feel so alone. He felt seen. As the last of the memories faded into the air around him, Jake was left standing in silence, the glow of the heirloom still casting its warm light over the room. His heart raced, a whirlwind of emotions flooding his mind. The past, his childhood, his family, the moments of love and loss, felt so real, as though they were unfolding all over again. His breath caught in his throat as he slowly turned his gaze toward Lyra. She stood still, watching him with those deep, luminous eyes that seemed to see through him, as though she understood everything he was feeling. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Jake didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to process what he had just seen, let alone how to explain the storm of thoughts crashing inside his head. But one thing was certain, Lyra had unlocked something within him, something buried deep down for years. She had given him a glimpse of who he was before, and in doing so, had opened a door he wasn't sure he was ready to walk through. "Do you understand now?" Lyra asked softly, her voice carrying the weight of something ancient and knowing. Jake nodded slowly, still processing the flood of memories. "I don't know, it's just a lot," he admitted, his voice shaky. "It's like everything's come rushing back all at once. Things I didn't even realize I'd forgotten." Lyra stepped closer, her presence calming yet somehow overwhelming, as if she was both a part of the space around him and separate from it. "The heirloom holds many truths," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "It shows you what was, what could have been, and what is to come. It reveals your past, but it also connects you to something greater. Something beyond just your memories." Jake swallowed, his mind still reeling. "I don't know if I'm ready for all that. I'm just a guy from Earth. I didn't ask for this." Lyra tilted her head slightly, her silver blue hair catching the light. "No one ever asks for it," she replied, her voice soft but tinged with a depth of understanding. "But fate does not always wait for us to be ready. Sometimes, it simply chooses us." Jake glanced at the heirloom again, still glowing softly between them. He felt a strange pull toward it, as if it was calling to him, urging him to understand something more. He had always believed in the simplicity of his life, his routine, his home. But now, standing here in this foreign world, he realized that simplicity had been a veil. Beneath it lay something much more complex, something far beyond his understanding. "What does this all mean?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's eyes softened. "It means you are part of a greater story, Jake. You are not just a human from Earth. You are a bridge between worlds, a key to something that has been waiting for millennia." Jake shook his head, trying to wrap his mind around her words. "A bridge? A key?" "I don't, you will understand," Lyra interrupted, her voice firm yet soothing. "In time. The heirloom will show you more. It will guide you, but you must be open to it. You must trust it." Jake took a deep breath, still uncertain but willing to move forward. He looked at Lyra, her face soft but filled with purpose. He had no idea what he was about to walk into, but something about her made him want to trust her. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, I'll try." Lyra gave him a small, knowing smile. "You're not alone in this, Jake. You never were. Remember that." As she spoke, Jake felt a shift within himself. The confusion, the fear, it started to melt away, replaced by something new. A sense of purpose, a curiosity about the unknown, and a growing understanding that his life was no longer just his own. It was part of something much bigger, something that spanned galaxies and eons. And though he had no idea what lay ahead, Jake knew that this was just the beginning. As Jake stood there, processing Lyra's words, the weight of his past and the unknown future seemed to press down on him, but there was a flicker of clarity in his mind. He had come here as an ordinary man, someone just trying to make sense of his life. But now, standing in the midst of an alien world, he realized that nothing was ever truly ordinary. The universe had far more mysteries than he had ever imagined, and somehow, he had become part of it. "Are you ready?" Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts, and he looked up at her. Her eyes were still filled with that same, calm intensity, but there was a new softness there, almost like she was waiting for him to make a choice. Jake wasn't sure what to say. He wasn't sure if he was ready. But the words that came out of his mouth were clear. "I guess I don't have much of a choice, do I?" Lyra smiled, a small, knowing smile that spoke volumes. "You always have a choice, Jake. But not all choices are easy. Some lead to discovery, others to something more." Jake frowned, still confused, but there was something about Lyra's words that gave him a sense of direction. "So, what's next?" he asked, his voice low but steady. Lyra stepped forward, holding the glowing heirloom in her hands. "The next step is to understand who you really are, Jake. And what you are meant to do. She extended her hand toward him, and without thinking, he reached out to take it. As his fingers brushed against hers, he felt a jolt of energy, a spark that seemed to hum between them. It wasn't physical, at least not in the way he expected, but it was real. The heirloom shimmered brightly, casting a soft glow that bathed them both. For a moment, everything around them seemed to fade away, the room, the light, even the strange, otherworldly atmosphere of the place they were in. It was just Jake and Lyra, standing in a shared moment of silence, as if time itself had paused. "The heirloom will show you more," Lyra said softly, her voice barely a whisper in the stillness. "It will guide you, but it will also reveal the truth that you have hidden from yourself." Jake stared at the heirloom, his mind racing. What truth? What was he supposed to see? And why did Lyra seem so certain that he was the one who needed to uncover it? His fingers tightened around hers, and he felt a sense of resolve building within him, slowly but steadily. "What if I don't like what I see?" he asked, his voice shaking just a little. Lyra gave him a reassuring look, squeezing his hand. "You will," she said simply. "Because it's your truth. And only you can decide what to do with it." Jake took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling as he prepared himself. He wasn't sure what the future held, but in this moment, with Lyra beside him and the heirloom glowing between them, he felt like he was standing at the edge of something important. Something that could change everything. "Okay," he said quietly, his voice gaining strength with each word. "Let's see it." Lyra nodded, and with a final, lingering glance at him, she held the heirloom up toward the soft, radiant light that filled the room. The air around them seemed to shift, the energy in the space humming with a new intensity. Jake's heart raced as the glow of the heirloom intensified, and for a brief moment, everything went white. Then, slowly, the white light faded away, leaving Jake standing in a new place. A place that felt both familiar and foreign, a place where everything was different. And as his surroundings came into focus, he realized his journey was just beginning. The light slowly dimmed, revealing a vast, open space that stretched endlessly in all directions. Jake blinked, trying to process what he was seeing. He had expected some kind of grand revelation, but nothing could have prepared him for this. The world around him was unlike anything he had ever seen. The ground beneath his feet was a smooth, silvery surface that shimmered like liquid metal. Above him, the sky was a deep violet, with swirling clouds of radiant energy that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The air smelled faintly of ozone, like a storm was just beginning to form, but the stillness was unsettling. Lyra stood beside him, her figure outlined by the soft glow of the heirloom still glowing faintly in her hand. She appeared calm, almost serene, but there was a flicker of something else in her eyes, something that Jake couldn't quite place. "Where are we?" Jake's voice broke the silence, his words feeling small against the vastness of the place. "This is the place between worlds," Lyra said quietly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "It is a space where time and reality blur. Where the past and the future meet." Jake's mind raced as he took in her words. "The past and the future?" he echoed, his voice tinged with confusion. Lyra nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving the distant horizon. "The heirloom you touched is not just a relic. It is a key to this place, to understanding what lies ahead and what has already been. This is where the decisions of the past and the choices of the future are woven together." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. It was one thing to hear about such concepts, but standing here in this strange, alien world, they took on a weight he wasn't sure he was ready to bear. "But why me?" he asked, his voice small but firm. "Why did the heirloom show me my past? Why did it choose me?" Lyra turned to him, her expression softening. "You have a unique role to play, Jake. The heirloom does not just show the past, it shows what could have been and what may still come to be. You are the link between these possibilities. Your actions will shape the future, not just for you, but for all who inhabit this universe." Jake stared at her, his mind spinning. He had never thought of himself as anything special. He had always just been Jake Thompson, an ordinary man from Earth. But now, standing in this strange place, surrounded by a reality that defied logic, he began to understand that he was part of something far greater than he could have ever imagined. "How do I start?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra gave him a small, reassuring smile. "By trusting yourself, Jake. By understanding that the choices you make here will ripple across time and space. The heirloom has already shown you the past, but now you must see what lies ahead. You are the one who will determine how the story unfolds." Jake took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words settle in his chest. He was no longer just a man standing in a strange place. He was part of a story that was still being written. And somehow, deep inside, he felt ready to take the next step. With one final glance at Lyra, he stepped forward, his mind filled with a newfound sense of purpose. The world around him shifted, and he realized that this journey was just beginning. The air around Jake seemed to shimmer as the space he stood in began to warp once more. He could feel the subtle hum of energy vibrating beneath his feet, the ground shifting as though the very fabric of reality was bending in response to his thoughts. It was unsettling, but somehow, it felt natural. As if this world, this strange place between dimensions, was meant for him. Lyra stood beside him, silent as ever, her gaze directed toward the horizon. Her presence was both calming and intense, a contrast that Jake found hard to understand. He turned to her, needing an answer to the question swirling in his mind. "What now?" Jake's voice was steady, but deep down, he was still unsure of what he was meant to do. The enormity of the task ahead weighed heavily on him. Lyra finally spoke, her voice soft, yet firm. "Now, Jake, you must learn to see beyond the physical. You must understand the threads that connect the universe, the subtle forces that guide it. You are no longer just a man from Earth. You are part of something far greater." Jake's brow furrowed. "I don't understand. How can I do that? I'm not special." "I'm just, you are," Lyra interrupted, her tone filled with a quiet certainty. "You are special because you are open. Open to the possibilities that others can't see. The heirloom showed you your past, but it is only the beginning. You will learn to see the connections between all things, between the present, the past, and the future." Jake looked at the heirloom in her hand, still glowing softly with an otherworldly light. It had shown him flashes of his past, but now, it seemed to pulse with a deeper meaning. "How do I learn to see these connections?" he asked, the question more to himself than to Lyra. Lyra smiled slightly, her eyes gleaming with an ancient wisdom. "By trusting what you feel, not just what you see. You must connect with the energy of this place. Let it guide you, let it show you what lies ahead. The heirloom is not just a relic. It is a bridge to knowledge, to understanding. But you must be willing to walk across it." Jake nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle inside him. He had always thought of himself as a man of simple means, someone who didn't delve into the mystical or the unknown. But now, standing in this strange world, he couldn't deny the pull he felt. He had been chosen for something, he just didn't know what it was yet. Lyra stepped forward, leading Jake into the center of the glowing space. The air around them seemed to pulse with energy, and Jake could feel the hair on the back of his neck stand on end. "Close your eyes," Lyra instructed. "Trust yourself, and let the energy flow through you." Hesitant but willing, Jake closed his eyes. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, he felt it, a surge of warmth, like sunlight streaming through the cracks of a closed door. The energy was alive, and it was calling to him. He could feel it vibrating through his body, filling every fiber of his being. It was as if the universe itself had opened up before him, and he could sense the threads that wove everything together: time, space, existence. It was all connected. He could see flashes of the future, glimpses of things yet to come, and he understood that the choices he made here, in this place, would ripple out across the universe. The weight of his role pressed against him, but with it came a sense of purpose. He wasn't just here by chance. He had been chosen for a reason. "You see it now, don't you?" Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts. Jake opened his eyes, the world around him still glowing with that strange, radiant energy. "I see it," he said quietly, his voice filled with awe. "I understand." Lyra nodded, her expression softening. "Good. Now, Jake, you must decide. The future is in your hands. What will you do with it?" Jake took a deep breath, his mind still racing with the possibilities. He wasn't sure where this journey would lead, but for the first time in his life, he felt ready to face whatever came next. He had a purpose, and that was more than he could have ever hoped for. "I'll do what I must," Jake said, his voice steady with resolve. Lyra smiled. "That is all anyone can ask." With that, she stepped back, her figure blending into the glowing energy that surrounded them. Jake felt the weight of the moment, but there was no fear. Only determination. He had come here to discover the truth, and now he was ready to see it through, no matter where it took him. The energy surrounding Jake seemed to hum louder now, resonating deep within his chest as if the universe itself was breathing through him. Lyra had stepped back, allowing him to stand alone, but the weight of his thoughts pressed against him like the atmosphere in this strange, radiant world. His mind was still spinning with the revelations, the heirloom, the power of connection, and now, the growing realization that his actions here had consequences far beyond anything he could have imagined. For the first time in his life, he felt the full magnitude of his existence, as though his very being was tied to the flow of time itself. He closed his eyes and took a slow, deep breath. What did it all mean? What was he supposed to do now that he understood? The light around him flickered, and a sudden sense of urgency washed over him. He had been brought here for a reason, but that reason was still unclear. There had to be more, something deeper that he needed to understand. "Lyra," Jake's voice was calm, but there was a quiet desperation there, a desire for clarity. "What am I supposed to do with this power? With what I've learned?" Lyra's voice came to him from somewhere in the distance, soft but clear. "The first step is to trust what you have seen, Jake. The second is to act on it." He turned toward her, his gaze fixed on her form, still bathed in the ethereal light. "Act on it," he repeated, his voice unsure. "How? What does that even mean?" Lyra appeared before him again, her figure emerging from the glowing mist. "It means understanding the power you now hold. The ability to shape the future, to guide it, but only if you are willing to accept the responsibility that comes with it. The heirloom has shown you the threads of time, but it is you who must choose which threads to follow." Jake's mind raced. His life had been simple before. He had always been in control of his own decisions, his own path. But now? Now, it was as if the very fabric of reality had shifted, and he was no longer sure where he stood. He had seen his past, the mistakes, the regrets, but also the love, the moments of happiness. Could he change that? Could he reshape the future? What if I make the wrong choice? Jake asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra's eyes softened as she stepped closer. There are no wrong choices, only different paths. Each choice you make will lead you to a different version of the future, but they all carry meaning. It is not about perfection, Jake. It is about understanding that you are part of something greater than yourself. He looked at her, still uncertain, but something in her words resonated within him. He wasn't alone in this. He had a role to play, a part in the story of the universe, and while the future was uncertain, he could still shape it. What do I do first? Jake asked, the words feeling like a promise to himself. Lyra's gaze never wavered. You begin by embracing what you have learned. You let the knowledge guide you, and you use it to help those who need it. The future is always changing, Jake. It is fluid, and it is in your hands now. Jake took another deep breath, feeling a sense of calm begin to settle over him. It wasn't going to be easy, but he wasn't the same man who had come here. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but he could carry it. The journey ahead was unknown, but he had a purpose now. And that was enough to push him forward. All right, he said, his voice stronger now, filled with newfound determination. Let's begin. Lyra smiled, her expression filled with approval. "You're ready, Jake. You've always been ready. The journey may be long, but you will find your way." With that, she turned and gestured for him to follow. Jake stepped forward, his heart steady, and his mind focused on the path ahead. He didn't know exactly where it would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't alone. And that was all he needed to keep moving forward. The world around Jake seemed to shift with every step he took. He followed Lyra, though the landscape had barely changed. The air remained thick with an energy that seemed to pulse and resonate with the very core of his being. It wasn't just the surroundings, it was him, too. He could feel himself becoming more attuned to this place, the space between worlds. The more he moved, the clearer things became, and yet the more uncertain they seemed. They approached what appeared to be a small clearing, surrounded by glowing structures that seemed to float above the ground. Their shapes were sleek, elegant, and almost surreal, like something out of a dream. "This is the center," Lyra said, her voice low and steady. "The heart of this place. It is where you will begin your journey." Jake stopped in his tracks, his eyes scanning the scene. It was beautiful, but unsettling. There was a stillness to it, a kind of quiet that made him feel like he was standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. "What do you mean, the center?" Jake asked, his voice uncertain. "What am I supposed to do here?" Lyra turned to face him, her expression unreadable, yet there was something in her gaze that made him feel as though he was seeing through a veil. "This is where you learn to navigate the threads of time and space, Jake," she said. "It is where the future will be shaped, where you will begin to understand the full extent of the power you now hold." He swallowed hard, trying to grasp what she was saying. "The threads of time," he repeated. "You mean, I can control the future?" Lyra smiled, a small, knowing smile that carried both reassurance and a hint of mystery. "Not control, Jake. Guide. The future is not something that can be controlled. It is fluid, ever-changing. But with the knowledge you now possess, you can influence it. You can help shape it, guide it in a way that aligns with the greater good." Jake stood there, trying to wrap his mind around her words. He had always believed that the future was something that just happened, that there was no real way to change it. But now, standing here, he was being told that he could have an impact. He could guide the future. "How do I do that?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's gaze softened as she stepped closer to him. "You will learn to listen, Jake. The energy that surrounds you, the very fabric of the universe, it speaks to those who are open to it. It will guide you, just as the heirloom showed you the past." Jake felt a strange, almost magnetic pull toward the structures around them. He couldn't explain why, but something about them felt familiar. As though they were calling to him. He took a cautious step forward, and then another, feeling the weight of his decision settle on him. He had come here to understand. He had come here to learn. And now, it seemed like he was on the brink of something monumental. The air around him seemed to shift, vibrating with energy as he stepped closer to the central structure. It was like stepping into a dream, into something that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring at the same time. "Trust yourself," Lyra's voice came again, breaking the silence. "The future is yours to shape, but only if you trust in what you have learned." Jake nodded, feeling a sense of resolve building within him. He wasn't sure what lay ahead, but he was ready. Ready to face whatever challenges the future would bring. He took another step forward, his hand reaching out toward the structure, and as his fingers touched it, a wave of energy surged through him. It was as if the universe itself had opened up to him, and for a moment, everything made sense. The threads of time, the vastness of existence, it was all there, flowing around him, waiting for him to make his mark. He closed his eyes, letting the energy wash over him, and for the first time, he felt a deep connection to the world around him. He wasn't just Jake Thompson anymore. He was part of something far greater. And as he stood there, feeling the pull of the future, he knew that this was only the beginning. The energy surged through Jake as his hand connected with the smooth, glowing surface. It wasn't just physical, it was a deep, resonating pulse that seemed to echo within his chest. The structure hummed with life, and in that moment, Jake could feel every fiber of his being vibrating with the current of this place. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, trying to center himself. The visions from the heirloom, the threads of time, they swirled in his mind like an endless web, each strand beckoning him to reach out and connect. He had been given the power to influence the future, but how? How could he, just one man, wield something so vast and complex? His mind raced with questions, but there was no time to dwell on uncertainty. The energy around him continued to pulse, and the air seemed to grow thicker, heavier, as though it was waiting for him to act. Trust in what you've learned, Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts, calm and unwavering. Jake opened his eyes and looked at her. She was standing nearby, her eyes glowing with a soft, steady light. Her presence was grounding, as if she was both a guide and a reminder of the path he needed to follow. He nodded, though the uncertainty still lingered in his mind. Lyra was right. He had learned something important, something profound. He had seen the connections, felt the energy, and understood that the future wasn't something that just happened, it was something that could be shaped. The question now was how. He turned his attention back to the structure in front of him, the lines of energy flowing from it like rivers of light. He could feel them pulling at him, guiding him, urging him to follow. It was a call to action, a call to take the next step. He could feel the weight of the choice pressing down on him, but he also felt the power within him, the power of possibility. He had seen what could be, and now it was time to choose what would be. With a deep breath, Jake stepped forward. As he did, the energy around him surged, enveloping him in a whirlwind of light and sound. The world shifted again, but this time it wasn't a disorienting blur, it was clear. He could see the threads, the connections, stretching out before him like a map of the future. They twisted and turned, leading him in different directions, and for a moment, Jake felt like he could see all the possible outcomes. He could see the consequences of every choice, the ripples of every decision, and the weight of it all was overwhelming. But there was something else too, hope. He saw the potential for good, for change, for growth. He wasn't alone in this. He had a purpose, a role to play in the grand scheme of things. The power to guide the future wasn't a burden, it was a gift. He had been chosen, and now it was time to embrace that. Jake, Lyra's voice again, softer this time, as though she had been waiting for him to come to this realization. The future is yours to shape, but you must move forward with intention. Your choices will echo through time, but you must be ready to act. Jake nodded, his resolve solidifying. He didn't have all the answers yet, but he knew one thing for sure: he was ready. The future wasn't something that happened to him anymore. It was something he would create. With a final glance at Lyra, he took another step forward, and as he did, the energy around him surged with a new intensity. The journey had only just begun, but Jake felt a deep sense of certainty now. He was not the same man who had arrived in this place. He was something more. And whatever lay ahead, he was ready to face it. Jake felt the ground beneath him tremble, a subtle shift in the air that seemed to indicate something was changing. The energy from the structure around him had intensified, and the threads of the future that he had seen earlier were now clearer, sharper. They called to him, each one beckoning him down a different path. His heart beat steadily in his chest, the rhythm of his thoughts matching the pulse of the universe around him. He was no longer uncertain. The time for hesitation had passed. The future was in his hands now, and it was up to him to choose which path to take. Jake, Lyra's voice was calm but filled with purpose. The moment you step forward, there is no going back. The future you choose will shape everything, everything you know, everything you've yet to discover. Her words settled over him like a heavy cloak, but they didn't frighten him. Instead, they gave him clarity. He had always thought that the future was a series of random events, unconnected and uncontrollable. But now, in this place, he saw that every action, every choice, was interconnected. He could see how each thread twisted and turned, leading to an outcome that was shaped by the choices of the present. "I understand," Jake said, his voice steady and resolute. He had been standing at the edge of the unknown for so long, but now he was ready to step into it. He was ready to take control of his own destiny. He turned to Lyra, who was watching him with those glowing eyes that seemed to hold the weight of the universe within them. "What do I do now?" he asked, the question hanging in the air between them. Lyra smiled, a small, approving smile that made something inside Jake stir. "Now, you act. The threads of the future are woven together, but it is up to you to pull them in the direction you need. You've seen the possibilities, Jake. Now, it is time to choose your path." The words were simple, but they carried a weight far beyond their meaning. Jake felt the energy around him surge, as though the universe itself was urging him forward. He closed his eyes for a moment, allowing the sensation of the threads to wash over him again. They were there, each one vibrant and full of potential. He could feel them, stretching out before him, waiting for him to take the first step. With a deep breath, Jake stepped forward. The air around him shifted as he moved, the glowing structures flickering like stars in the distance. The path ahead was unclear, but for the first time in his life, Jake felt the weight of his purpose. He wasn't just a man lost in a strange world anymore. He was someone with a role to play in something far greater than he had ever imagined. As he walked, he felt the connections around him, the threads of time and space that had been revealed to him. Each step he took seemed to bring him closer to understanding, closer to his place in this vast, interconnected universe. He wasn't alone in this journey. He was part of something much bigger, and as long as he continued to walk forward, he would never truly be lost. The future was still unwritten, but for the first time, Jake knew that he could shape it. The energy around him pulsed with promise, and as he stepped into the unknown, he realized that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, but Jake Thompson was no longer just a man from Earth. He was a guide, a link between worlds, and he was ready to fulfill the role that had been waiting for him all along.